The eyes of the motor racing world were focused on a small, previously unknown town deep in the south of Sweden. It was 1:30 on a hot, dusty Sunday afternoon, June the 17th, a time for suntans and bikinis as we waited for the action to begin. If variety is a spice of life, then it's surely no wonder that racing drivers are spicier than most of us. The last time we saw the Grand Prix circus on wheelbase, they were swooping up and down Monaco through those natural hazards like a casino, a harbour and hefty curbstones. Now we find ourselves further north than at any time in a European World Championship. We're at Anderstorp in Sweden, and behind me the Scandinavian Raceway, with some tortuous corners that seem to go on and on, a flat place amidst the pine trees where the drivers are really going to have to work. And the Swedes, for their first ever Grand Prix, have come here in huge quantities, 50,000 of them, and the man they want to see win is Ronnie Peterson, the man who's driving in his 38th Grand Prix. How important is it to you, Ronnie, to try and get your first Grand Prix win in front of your home crowd in their first Grand Prix?
Well, it just should feel very nice to do, but for me it's just the other Grand Prix.
You really are honestly saying it's just another Grand Prix?
Yeah, but I want to win it.
Reigning champion Fittipaldi was anxious to improve his 4-point lead over Stewart. The Scotsman and the Brazilian had monopolised the season so far, winning 3 races apiece, and victory in Sweden's Hitachi Grand Prix could give Stewart the lead. But Francois Sever was outshining his eminent teammate and joined Ronnie Peterson on the front row of the grid. Jackie X's Ferrari has never repeated the form it showed in Spain, and the Belgian blamed internal politics at Modena. Clay Regazzoni was still looking for his first win since Monza 1970, and his Marlboro BRM teammate Beltoise had still not found a form that won him Monaco last season. In Brabham number 10, Reutemann, the Argentinian seeking to emulate Fangio, was one of the sensations of practice. John Surtees looked harassed as always, and although Halewood did well in practice, Pache had a bad crash. Graham Hill was far happier with his Embassy Shadow than on its previous outings, but these electrical problems in practice were an omen of things to come. Howden Gandy went well in the ESO Marlborough and had the Dane Tom Belso as a new practice partner to spur him on. All seemed calm in the McLaren camp, with Holm joking about his ancient 3-year-old engine and Revson earning a solid 4th-row grid position just behind his teammate. How fast are you going down the straight?
I haven't even looked, but I would just estimate probably 175 be maximum. We have a headwind, of course if that changes for tomorrow, some people probably have to change gear ratios. You know, we're geared very much on this wind here, for the wind, in top anyway.
It's quite a difficult circuit to drive quickly. It looks very simple, and in fact you can go around moderately quickly without a great deal of trouble. A couple of seconds off the fast time and it's a dawdle. It really is easy. But getting down to the fast time, the sort of pole position time, is another question. It's a constant radius type of corner, which is always difficult. The chassis has got to work very well. The tyres have got to grip. And then, of course, there's a main back straight, which is quite fast. It's the main runway of this little airport here. And if you're not pulling the right sort of horsepower, you're not in business there either.
The exceptionally efficient organisation was thrown out of gear by, of all people, cameramen standing behind the Armco facing the start. They disagreed with the organisers over the safety of their position, and it took a definitely diplomatic Denny Holm to solve the problem. But to the annoyance of the crowd, the race started half an hour late. The cars rolled round eagerly from the pits, with Stewart jinking to scrub his tyres. There were 21 starters with 80 laps ahead of them, nearly 200 miles. And in pole position, Peterson sat next to Francois Sever. Behind them were the championship chasers, Stewart and Fittipaldi. Reutemann and Holm occupied the 3rd row, and Revson and X filled the 4th. As the flag fell, it was Fittipaldi who outmanoeuvred everyone, flicking through from the 2nd row to squeeze Sever out of 2nd place on the 1st corner. And the pattern of leadership was established for 70 laps. Graham Hill's electrics failed just round the very first corner, and in the battle for the lead, Stewart was frustrated as he failed to make ground on the inside and had to break back behind Sever, with Reutemann holding up Holm and X ahead of Parche, then Refson, Halewood, Beltoise, Fulmer, Regazzoni, Oliver and Beutler. Helpers beside Hill's stricken car scattered as they heard the pack coming back. And so a storming first 2.5 miles ended, with Peterson leading Fittipaldi, Sever ahead of Stewart, Reutemann leading Holm, X and Refson. The crowd could hardly believe their eyes. Their hero was well in front. Peterson continued to thrill his home crowd as he raced ahead of Fittipaldi, Sever and Stewart. But there was no joy for Fittipaldi's big brother Wilson as he squealed off in a cloud of dust. He was unhurt, and the marshals, trained by a contingent from Britain's BRSCC, were on the spot at once. Meanwhile, Graham Hill had restarted his car, but he only completed 17 unhappy laps. The end of lap 3, and this is a sight the Swedes wanted to see in their first championship race. Peterson well clear of Fittipaldi, who was riding shotgun for his teammate against the Tyrrells. Holm was trying to pass Reutemann, then came X, Revson, Halewood, Beltoise and Parche, and then a gap before Ganley, Lauder, Fulmer, Jarrier, Regazzoni, Oliver and Beutler. Peterson, despite proving again and again that he's the fastest man on the circuits, still awaits his first Grand Prix win. And where better to achieve it than before 58,000 of his countrymen? But there was a long way to go. Wilson Fittipaldi was watching a familiar story. 2 John Player specials fighting it out with the Elf Tyrrells, 2 marks which have dominated the sport for 3.5 seasons. Beltoise, leaking oil, heads into the pits. Reutemann wanted championship points. Jackie X was unhappy with the Ferrari. But the big prizes seemed reserved for the Big 4, with Peterson holding a comfortable lead and Fittipaldi as yet untroubled by the Tyrrells. Colin Chapman looked as inscrutable as ever, but he must have been happy with the 2-car Lotus lead. But in the Tyrrell pit, Ken Tyrrell was less happy with his cars running 3rd and 4th. This isn't lap 40. That's the back of the number telling the drivers that a third of the race has gone. And it's still Peterson, Fittipaldi, Sever and Stewart, with Holm really fighting for 4th place with the Scotsman. Was back in the hunt with a patched-up oil tank, but not for long. As the timekeepers followed the cars down the pit straight, Beltoise's engine seized, the wheels locked up, and he crashed off unhurt. Oliver went out with knock-kneed rear suspension. Earlier, sand from his wheels clogged Holmes' throttle slides, but the Kiwi really fought back. Sever was his first victim on lap 62. These were now the men making the race. Peterson and Fittipaldi, with Stewart hot on their trail, and Holm coming back into the picture. The track was treacherous, and one slip or one technical trauma could change the whole picture. But Peterson, trying for the 38th time to win a Grand Prix, was still holding everyone at bay. That looked processional in the early stages boiled up to explode into drama. Stewart and Fittipaldi duelled as if it was the final round of the championship. With three of the world's finest drivers disputing every inch of the course, the Swedish crowd couldn't have had a better introduction to Grand Prix racing. Just one missed gear change could change the whole story of the race. But a fourth man was now in the hunt. Denny Hulme in his Yardley McLaren was really pouring on the pressure in a dramatic fight back. Suddenly there was a sensational change in the order. Hulme came round in third place, and Stewart had taken over in second. What had happened to Emerson Fittipaldi?
I had only front brakes, and then the pedal went completely down, and after that I was only running fourth gear, very slowly, just try to finish, and 2 laps on the end, blow up the gearbox.
Now Peterson had no friendly teammate in his mirrors. Stewart was chasing an historic 26th victory and 9 championship points, and Hulme was right behind him. But as Fittipaldi parked, everything happened at once. Amazingly, Peterson now had Hulme on his tail, and with 3 laps to go, it was Swede versus Kiwi. But where was Stewart? He'd slowed right down with severe braking problems. Now Hulme only had Peterson to beat, and Peterson had a slow puncher. What were Hulme's thoughts at this moment?
I thought, well, if I get it all right towards the end, I have to be very lucky here. I might just manage to sneak by, and then, of course, Emerson had a problem, and Jackie had a problem, and it left me just a clear run at Ronnie. And I would have liked a few more laps to maybe sort him out, but I really switched the rev limiter off and thought, well, here goes. It's one of those all-bust deals, and just gave it 11.3 and passed Ronnie down the back straight.
So Hulme won, and after leading for 78 laps, Peterson lost his home Grand Prix. Fittipaldi shared his disappointment.
I was sure that Ronnie was winning and he could win the race. I was really, quite upset when I saw that Denny overtook Ronnie. It was really a shame because Ronnie deserves to win here. It was a good victory for Denny. He drove a very good race, but I'd be much happy with Ronnie.
How do you feel about beating Ronnie on the last lap? It was a bit off, wasn't it?
Well, it wasn't really a bit off, but I've always had this theory that it's very seldom, and Emerson broke this theory of mine, that you never very seldom win on your own home ground.
Ronnie, how do you feel? We're very sorry. I think everybody here is.
Well, I'm very happy anyway to finish second. Of course, I should have liked to win.
Denny Hulme had won his first Grand Prix since in South Africa in 1972. Peterson was second, Sever third, Reutemann fourth, Stewart fifth, and Ick sixth. And no one will ever forget Sweden's first Grand Prix.
What a wonderful birthday present for Denny Hulme, who was 37 yesterday. His victory makes the Drivers' World Championship look like this. Fittipaldi still leads with 41 points, but Jackie Stewart is now close behind him with 39. In third place, Sever. Denny Hulme now comes up to fourth, and his McLaren teammate Peter Revson is fifth. Ronnie Peterson's great drive at Understock now makes him sixth. What a needle match this Formula One season is turning out to be.